Thank you so much for joining us for Mecklenburg Audubon's monthly meeting for February. We've got some fun things going on, and we will start our presentation with a little pre-show that Christine has put together. So take it away, Christine.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see everybody tonight. So we're all here to see Bryan.
Yeah. Yeah, Bryan Sharp is with us from Stanley Community College. And he lived in, he can tell us if I mess this up, but Durango, Mexico for about a decade. And he still does he's a compiler for their Christmas count. Anyway, Steve Coggin's gonna tell you all this. So we'll see you in a second, Bryan.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Most of you already are well aware of the sad news. We've really been enjoying the field trips this year, and we sure did our darndest to try to keep them up in the COVID era, because we've known how valuable it's been. But once the county changed its directive, we thought that we should, we thought we should toe the line and do the safer thing and try to make sure we were following all the rules to keep everybody safe. So we're following what the government's advising, and we're really hoping we can get back to these again soon.
Good. I like your visual there, Christine. It took me a few minutes ago to put together the suspended and the suspenders.
Yeah,
anyway, very clever.
All right. Birds. We're going to show just a few highlight photos that we've been hearing from people the past few weeks since our last meeting. These are some great photos from Gretchen from those of you who haven't made the trek. I don't think these are too far away, but it's not a county bird, but it's nearby here in North Carolina. You guys might remember late last year we were talking about the potential for evening grosbeaks coming, and I think we've had a few herd onlys over our county, but nearby you can actually go see them at a feeder. There's a few locations throughout North Carolina where they're getting decent numbers. So these are just stunning birds.
This is one of the best birding experiences I've ever had. It's a guy named Bert Fisher in Hillsborough, which is a couple of hours. It's near Chapel Hill. And oh my gosh, he had 40 of these. I know, Gretchen, you took beautiful pictures, but I went early on and it was truly stunning. So we appreciate his letting us visit. It's in a gated, beautiful piece of property. So thanks to him for letting us come.
Okay. These are two photos I got this week that I thought were pretty cool. Some hunting pictures, some hawk photos. Sherry Ingram sent us this photo out her window of a Cooper's hawk. And you can see some remnants of the northern cardinal on the foreground there. And John Scavetto sent this red-shouldered hawk photo. At least I'm pretty sure it's red-shouldered. I couldn't quite see if it had a belly band. I think it's a red-shouldered. I wasn't sure. I put versus question mark because I wasn't sure if we were looking at a mole or a vole or a little mouse. I don't know, Steve, you got any guess? Oh, you have to unmute.
Looks like a vole to me.
Yeah.
Short tail.
Nice shot. Nice shot. Okay. Some additional sightings that folks have sent in. Rich McCracken got this great blue heron in McAlpine Creek Park. And I kind of like the way he looks a little puffed up. It must have been a cold morning. Lee Weber got this great shot on the right of a merlin at Chantilly. A great local park that's got a little water as well, and it's a little sort of pocket neighborhood park that they worked on and did some restoration. So if you haven't been there, look up Chantilly Ecological Sanctuary. It's really had some great birds in recent times. John Scavetto also sent me some additional photos that he got over the past month or so. That white-crowned sparrow, based on the fencing and reports I've heard, I'm assuming that that's probably taken at the Charlotte airport. I think that's been a regular sighting this year and in past years. The belted kingfisher, it's one of my favorite birds, a great shot. They're pretty shy often, so I thought this was pretty good close up. I'm not sure where that's from. And the Downy Woodpecker, well, I think I have a typo there, sorry there.
Sorry, I should have
yeah.
known that.
Well, that one I thought was kind of neat because he has that that little sort of beige puffiness. I forget what they call it up above his nose that I thought was kind of a neat thing. So and that leads us. I'm assuming that's in his backyard, and so that leads us to our backyard birding leaderboard challenge.
Yay, yay. This thing is this Patty Maston's idea to do this backyard birding challenge for the whole year. I never saw myself as a backyard birder, and I have just gotten absolutely over the top about this. And you can see the leaders. Christine, you want to tell us who's ahead?
Sure. So our previous president, Jim Guyton, is in the lead. He has a great backyard sanctuary, and I saw that I believe it was just yesterday, or maybe it was today. He added a Peregrine Falcon. So that's a pretty good sighting for a backyard.
Yeah, really. He's
So,
looking out. He is looking out the window way too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big key to probably try to get ahead on this challenge. Besides checking out your feeders, I mean, it's any bird you see within your property grounds. So that's how I think you can get ahead. Look at the things that are just whipping by way up in the sky. Is some good advice there. Melissa and Gretchen are tied for second place, very close behind with Lucy, who's also doing well. Those of you who were on earlier probably heard me saying that I am stagnating. I had that 45 and was in a pretty decent size lead in early January, but nothing new has been coming through. So I'm dropping in the stats here. And Strummer Edwards is in 5th place overall with 44 species.
That's cool. I'm not quite on the board yet, and I got so desperate the other day that to get another new species that I almost entered mockingjay. You remember that bird that was in the Hunger Games? It was a cross between, it was an accidental mating of jabberjays and mockingbirds. And I almost wrote down mockingjay as a new species, but I knew Kent Fiala would bust me for that. So
that's right. The eBird police would definitely not allow it. Definitely not allow it. You want to go over the individual county leaders?
Sure. Again, there's Mr. Guyton leading in Mecklenburg. Melissa, same thing. These two are knocking it out of the park. And yay, Renee is ahead in Cabarrus. Dennis Kent is ahead in Union. Gretchen, congratulations. You're at the top in York. And Steve Coggin. That's fantastic. Those are some really good numbers. And
yeah.
In case you're wondering how many people are participating, it looks like as of recently, we had 32 competitors in Mecklenburg County, and we had 14 in the surrounding counties. So 47 people are participating, and we're really happy about that.
Great. So related to that, Lee Weber, he's also pretty high up there on the standings. He's participating, and he also likes to take photos. So he got this great shot of a black and white warbler. I have one that comes by occasionally, and this winter, which I'm really pleased about, but they are so flitty. It has really been a challenge to get a photograph. So I thought this was fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah. And speaking of amazing backyard birds, our leader, Jim, had 2 visits this past week from a Tennessee warbler, which was pretty big doings for a winter bird.
Do you know the backstory on this, Christine?
I do not.
He wrote it up as an orange-crowned warbler originally. And of course, Kent jumped in there and said, Jim, you've got a Tennessee. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a good mistake to make.
Yep.
That's for you, Malia.
Okay. So I wanted to mention this. It's coming up February 12th to 15th. Really has nothing to do with our backyard
Oh, I'm
birding
sorry, I have
challenge
the
for the
wrong,
year.
I have last year's slide up.
Oh, that's all right.
Can't get used to that, it's 2021.
That's okay. It's actually February 12th to 15th, and this is co-sponsored by National Audubon, Cornell Lab, and Birds Canada. So it's an international event, very easy to do. You just count birds on any or all of those 4 days, February 12th to 15th, for as little as 15 minutes. And then you submit your data to birdcount.org. I'll put that in the chat here in a minute. So it's a very easy way to, spend a few minutes in your backyard. If you're already doing our 2021 backyard bird challenge, then you might want to put some data that you get on those days into the birdcount.org database. Last year, over 27 million birds were counted worldwide. So it's a cool thing. And actually, we're doing a couple of videos for Catawba Lands Conservancy, Carolina Rail Trail, to promote Mecklenburg Audubon during the event. So hopefully that'll be something a lot of people can get involved in.
Actually,
Right.
Malia, you can't, if you put your stuff into eBird, it automatically goes into the Great Backyard Bird Count.
Oh, great,
They're
good.
doing that this year. So it's not, so you do have to have an account. You can go to the birdcount.org but when you put that in there, it'll go right into eBird. So if you're already putting it in to eBird, and it's not just your backyard, if you have a patch or a favorite park, you can do more than one checklist a day. So you could go around to all your favorite places and put a checklist in for each one, and then the next day do the same thing, and the next day do the same thing. They're also wanting, if you have pictures that you have some fun birds, and also just pictures of people actually birding. This is, I think Malia's already said this is international. So this will be going on around the world, not just in the United States.
Thank
Cool.
you, Judy. I didn't know that. That's perfect.
All right. I'm not going to elaborate too much on this one, but we are about to kick off a 5-year bird atlas in North Carolina. So they will be looking for volunteers. It's another citizen science bird tracking event. And in this case, you actually slow down a little bit and are reporting more about bird behavior, recovering the same areas on a regular basis. So look for that soon. We'll have stuff on our website, and we'll also, we're hoping to put together a Zoom meeting with the state compiler so we can learn more about how it works, and you guys can find out if you want to get involved. Hopefully you will.
Cool. Okay, just to promo briefly, our next meeting on March 4th, bird hearing is the topic next time, with our own board member, Larry Leamy, who is UNC Charlotte professor emeritus. So really look forward to that presentation on Thursday, March 4th.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Christine, very much. And we will charge into one other event that we want to talk about. I'm going to call on our advocacy chair, Matthew Withrow, to unmute his mic and tell us about an event that's coming up on February 10th. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, guys. Sorry, I can't. Here we go.
Here you are.
So I just want to do a quick plug here for Advocacy Day. I know a lot of folks have probably been getting bombarded with emails, some of which have probably been from me. Basically, we're at the point where we're getting our groups together. People are confirming that they're going to be around on the event is next Wednesday. So people are confirming they're going to be around, and we're starting to schedule our meetings with representatives and senators. This is kind of just a last ask if anybody has not heard of it or not signed up and is interested. There are roles available for folks who do not want to be an active speaker in the meeting, apart from just introducing yourself. You know, we've got folks who are designated as speakers who are going to go and introduce the topics and, have most of the conversation with the senators. So if you're nervous about talking to people and, but still want to be a part of it, you can join these meetings and still show support to your local representatives about show support for birds and through this medium. And it's through Zoom, so it's a relatively easy way to do it. But if you're interested, just let me know. My email is just withrow.matthew@gmail.com. I can put it in the comments. Just shoot me an email and I can get you all the information you need, and we'll get you in a group and work on making a difference here. But that's all I got.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate your dedication to that whole effort. That's really great. Thanks. One quick thing, I want to welcome our newest Mecklenburg Audubon members. I'm just going to use their first names: Christine, Linda, Debbie, Annette, Strummer, Betty and Paul, Bill, William, Pradip, and Nancy. So we're so glad to have all of you as part of our flock. And speaking of membership, I'm going to call on our membership chair, Natasha Goins, to talk about being a member of Mecklenburg Audubon. Hey, Natasha, if you'll unmute and speak your piece.
Yes, hello, everyone. I just wanted to draw your attention to the website. The new website may look a little different than the old one. If you're looking to renew, and if you're looking to join, then you haven't seen the old one. I wanted to make sure everyone understands that when you sign in, it is a two-step process. You fill in an initial form, and it's going to ask you whether you want to pay by PayPal or check, and a few other questions. When you submit that, a second form pops up, and it's really important to follow through with that second form because that's the one that actually connects to PayPal. We've had a number of people who have done the first step and either didn't see the second pop-up window, or it's possible that your computer might be blocking it. But the bottom line is, if you don't get a receipt from PayPal within a minute or two after thinking that you've paid, then it didn't go through. So you should give it a try again. If you are having problems where you're just not able to do it, feel free to just send an email to mecklenburgaudubon@gmail.com, attention membership, and let me know you're having a problem. If you filled out a form that you wanted to pay PayPal and it didn't work and you're going to send a check, please do let me know, and then I'll know not to bug you about it, and I'll let you know when your check arrives. Or if just there's any other confusion. But that is something that is a possible source of confusion, and I know it has been for a few people. So just wanted to give you a heads up.
Great, thank you so much, Natasha, appreciate that. One more piece of business before we introduce our speaker. Every February, we open nominations to find folks to fill open positions on our board of directors for terms starting July 1st. It's really a great opportunity to get to know other birders and support the growth and health of our chapter. So if you have questions or are interested in finding out more about serving on our board, please contact a member of our nominating committee. I just put their email addresses in the chat: Chris Bowling, Janet Palmer, or Jill Palmer. So take a look at that, and all that information is also on page 2 of the February newsletter, which is on our website, macbirds.org. And speaking of the newsletter, Judy Walker's February issue is excellent, with articles about woodpeckers, how birds survive in winter, and much more. Thank you so much for inspiring us, Judy. We appreciate you do a good job every month. All right, we are moving along in our time clock there, so let's go on to the main event. Here is board member Steve Coggin to introduce tonight's speaker. So please unmute yourself, Steve, and take it away.
Thank you, Malia. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker tonight, Bryan Sharp. He's a biologist with a wide and varied experience with birds, from his master's work on cowbirds, parasitizing Bell's vireos in California, to banding hawks in the Florida Keys. Bryan is currently an instructor of biology at Stanley Community College in Albemarle, North Carolina. Bryan lived in Durango, Mexico for 11 years, and has been the compiler of the Christmas bird count there. Drawing on that experience, tonight he will tell us about the birds of Durango, Mexico. Bryan.
Thank you, Steve. And thanks again for asking me to do this talk. I had a lot of fun going through my old pictures and putting this talk together, and wishing I could go to Durango right now and go see some more of those cool birds. So let's see. Okay, are y'all seeing the big screen or the one that says with no notes? Because I have 2 screens here. We forgot to check that.
We're seeing the presenter side.
Okay, let me switch that. Yeah.
There we go.
That's it.
Well, no,
No, it's not.
that's our website.
Yep. Is that good now?
No, it's a website. We're looking at your browser.
I may have to take.
Don't
it
you
off
love
of-
technology?
The third time's going to be the charm, Bryan.
Okay, it was the screen. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it now.
Nope, I still got the website.
That's right. This should work. That
There
good?
we go.
Now we got it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Oh, and I'd like to mention Bryan has subtitles for us, as you can see. So we'll pretend we're watching a French film, and he's giving the
Right.
Spanish film. Anyway, thank you, Bryan.
Sure thing. So this is the cover of the book, was published in 2009 for Birds of Durango. And it's by Walter Bishop Guajardo, and he was the president of our bird club down there. I got to Durango in 2004 as a teacher at an American school. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. And he had started the club, I think, in the 90s, and then Betty was another. She was the vice president and the president later on. And this is the Tufted J, which is one of the iconic species for Durango in the mountains of Durango, as you can see in the background. So it's not endemic to the state, but almost, as you can see in this map from the Birds of the World. It's just this little portion of Durango, Sinaloa, and Nayarit. And it's about the size of a crow, and it's a beautiful bird. This picture doesn't show it, but it also has blue in the wings, and I have another one later on that I'll share with you as well. So I thank Steve for giving a good intro just now, and also the write-up in the newsletter, and helping me out with my presentation by sending me the Google map, so I could start off with that. And Durango is kind of in the northwest of Mexico. The arrow here is the city of Durango. So there's city, county, and state of Durango. And as you can see here on the west side, this is the Sierra Madre Occidental, the western Sierra Madre range. And then where it's lighter, the Chihuahuan Desert comes down in the northeastern part of the state. And we'll go over those biomes here in a little bit. I'm glad Steve also put some mention of culture in there as well, which otherwise I would have just gone straight for birds the whole talk. But some of the main industries, forestry, with having that big forest, it is #1 in lumber and forest services in the country. There is a lot of ranching of cattle and farming different crops. And then mining is a big one too, mostly silver, but there's also iron mines and auto part manufacturing. Actually, one of the parents at the school where I worked runs a big plant that sells a lot to GMC and other companies in Detroit. But they're trying to move towards these 4, and they are making a good push towards tourism. As you saw in Steve's write-up, the population of Durango is pretty low. It's the 2nd lowest in the country, which I loved because you could get out of the city and be chasing birds in wild places very quickly. And they're trying to take that to their advantage and promoting tourism. I actually have some friends there right now who are working with the government to develop brochures on birds specifically and connecting them to the different cabins that are in the mountains, which I'll show you examples of in a little bit. And that's going well. It tends to depend on the government in place though. And right now there's a bird-friendly government in the city and in the state. So we're taking advantage of that, and hopefully that'll continue. They mentioned research this was actually on the national government page of Mexico, and they do have a couple research centers there. I met some botanists who study cactus and various plants, and there are a few universities. So they are making progress in research in the biology front as well. And they are trying to improve renewable energy. There's a big solar plant was put in a while ago. There are a lot of plains and it's high country with a lot of sun. So that's definitely has a lot of potential for the state. And they also mentioned IT and logistics on the website, but that kind of surprised me. But it's good that they're going that way because it seems to be the way of the world. As far as the birds, most of the avifauna is similar to the Western US, and especially those northern and eastern parts. But then as you go further south and west, that's where we get into the more tropical species. So that's the interesting mix that gives Durango over 400 species of birds. And the Tropic of Cancer is not too far south of the city of Durango. And also a lot of birders in the States look for those Southwest specialties, the ones in southeastern Arizona and southwestern New Mexico, because they have those Sky Island regions. Those species are fairly common in Durango. I'm sorry, my boys are pounding. I don't know if y'all heard that. They're downstairs. But like red warbler, red-faced warbler, Grace's warbler, they're fairly easy to find in the mountains of Durango. So this map is from the book, Walter and Betty's book, and it's just a nice simple one that shows the ecoregions. And I'm going to start in the Northeast. I did leave the key up here to teach y'all some Spanish. We'll see if it translates it properly in the subtitles. The key actually starts from southwest to northeast. So it's Bosque Tropical Caducifolio is the deciduous tropical forest. So those are the canyons that are lower in elevation before you get up to the mountains in the pine oak forest. And then the plains and grasslands, these is altiplano, it's the high plains. And then in the northeast, it's more desert and semi-desert scrub. And I'm gonna start showing you Mapimi is an area, it was the second dedicated biosphere reserve in the country. The first one was actually La Michilia, which is down here near El Mezquital. It's a little bit more in the mountains, and this one's desert. And then we'll go over to the plains here in the northern part of the state where we get a lot of grassland birds. And a colleague of mine has done a lot of research there, and he's still doing it. And then we're going to take you to the center of that where we have the biggest body of water in the state, La Laguna Santiago. And of course, there are tons of water birds there. And then we'll go to the city of Durango, which is where I ended up, and started out birding pretty much just in parks. So I didn't have a car or didn't know anybody, but that was okay because we made a lot of progress compiling lists for the city parks. And then this is the area again, La Michilia, where the first biosphere reserve in the country. And then the mountains, mostly south of El Salto. This is where I spent most of my time outside of the city of Durango, and I absolutely love the mountains of Durango. They're beautiful. And then we'll close with a little bit of the tropical area, specifically the Puente Baluarte, which is now the highest suspension bridge in the world at 402 meters. So here's a shot of Mapimi. As you can see, not much vegetation. There are mountains scattered around, but lots of desert scrub. There are areas where there are grasses, like this area, and you can tell there's a little fence here, so that means the cattle aren't in there. It's not a real productive region, but they do have cattle in places, but they are trying to rotate and not totally devastate the grasses that are there. But that's a constant battle as well with people trying to make a living. and balancing that with preservation. This, though, is a research station. It's from the Instituto Nacional de Ecología. And we got to stay there. We had to get special permission, but as a club, we got to stay at the research station. It was May of 2006. And it was a great experience. And we actually found this species in the bathroom there. We weren't expecting a Townsend's warbler in the desert, but they were migrating through. And I snapped a shot of this one before we chased it out so it could go on its migratory way. And in the desert, wherever there's water, you're going to get birds. So this is a little drip. I don't know if you can tell, it's a busted pipe actually that's still dripping. So it's going to attract the birds from all around. And there are a lot of wintering birds, again, mostly from the Western United States. We have the Lark Bunting. This is a male in winter plumage and a female. Then a little brewer sparrow. And we've got the little back end of a lesser goldfinch here. But I'll give you a closer up of the brewers. They are very similar to chipping sparrows, being in the same genus Spizella, but they've got that streaked crown. They don't have that distinct white eyebrow or the black eyeline, and they've got that gray on the nape of the neck. And this one, I really like this shot because this one's obviously taking a deep drink of water here. White-crowned sparrows, Christine shared a photo of one. They're definitely more common out there in the West. This is a juvenile, and I like this one because it shows it's molting its crown feathers, so maybe it's getting, you can see some of the black feathers coming in. I'm not real good with my subspecies here, but I believe this is a Gambel's subspecies. They do have a couple species in subspecies of white-crowned in Durango, and this is a shot of the same bird looking at the camera. Oh, it is weird for me on Zoom not hearing anybody because normally when I'm speaking, I'm hearing other people. So if you do have questions, feel free to unmute your mic and stop in and step in. So here's more from the desert scrub. These lesser nighthawks, it was great. We could walk along the trails and we just see them perched right alongside the trails in there. These pictures are from Julia Ibarra. She's lives up in they call it the Laguna area. It's Gomez Palacio and Torreon in the Northeast. But she graciously loaned me some of her pictures, because my cameras are not as big and fancy as theirs. But the scaled quail, black-tailed gnatcatcher, very high cuteness factor there. And then this bird, the very bunting, it breeds up in the northeast of the state, but it also winters in the tropical southwestern part. And this photo is from Jose Hugo Martinez. I don't know if any of y'all saw the link that Steve put in the newsletter or maybe that was Judy. I was assuming it was Steve since he invited me. But Jose Hugo, he has a 600mm beautiful camera that I'm very jealous of, and he takes great pictures, but he shares them, so that's good. This one is mine, and I know it's not a bird, but I had to share it because this was in Mapping Me, and you can see it's a perfectly camouflaged horned lizard. I just love that one. I am a bird nerd, of course, but I love seeing all sorts of nature out there, so I thought that was a good one to include, and it definitely goes with the habitat. And I'm glad y'all included a note on culture in the write-up, because that reminded me of the Puente De Ocula. Now, it's an old silver mine. It was actually begun way back around 1600. The bridge, I believe at the time, it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, suspension bridge in the world. And these are the dimensions for it. Now, it was built at the end of the 19th century. The mines, of course, were open well before the bridge was put in, but it's to facilitate getting the ore out and getting it to market quicker. Designed by the German Santiago Mingin. It sounds like he has some Mexican or Spanish heritage as well. And they always said that he was on the Golden Gate project. I couldn't validate that, but it was a big team on Golden Gate, and it's a similar project, so it could be true. The bridge and the ghost town were restored in the 90s, And so this is the ghost town, and this is the bridge heading over to the mine. And here's the opening of the mine. And like many tourist places, they got to put a zip line in, which I don't know if it was good or bad, but it was fun swinging across the valley there. And that gives you a little perspective on the depth of the canyon at 110 meters. And of course, a great shot of how dry the scrub is. And this is in May again of 2005 or 2006, one of those years. A little more culture. The Ejidos is a community farm, and they were created in the Mexican Revolution. I don't know if you're familiar with Mexican history, but the revolution started basically to get rid of Porfirio Diaz because he had been in power for 30 years and was pretty oppressive, especially for poor people. So as a way to kind of give back to people living in poverty and give them power over the land where they live. And then in the 30s, the president Lázaro Cárdenas kind of expanded that and giving communities more land and areas to farm. And modern day biologists like Alfredo Garza Herrera here, who he and I became friends, they will go to the ejidos. There's funding to educate them. I don't know if you can see the title list, but it's basically showing the economic and ecological potential for their ejido. Their ejido is named La Flor, and it's actually in part of the biosphere. So it's an inholding and been grandfathered. Very simple, very friendly people, having a good time here. So we did, he and Alfredo invited me up to help him with the talk and with the birding. So we took him out to help them identify birds and possibly explore guiding for tourism is one of the big things. And that's been improving throughout the state over the years. And it's always great to see the young generation involved in it as well. All right, so now moving on to the central swath of those high plains and grassland, and again up in the very north of the state. This is a habitat shot, still fairly dry, but you see a lot more vegetation and not as much scrub as in Mapimí. But you still got the mountains everywhere. That's one reason I love Durango. Everywhere you go, there's some mountains close by. We did some banding. So this is Jose Hugo Martinez Guerrero. He's the one who has all the pictures up in eBird, and the link that was in the newsletter. This is Martin Pereda. They were professors at the veterinary university in Durango, but they were invited to a workshop by the Rocky Mountain Bird Observatory. They renamed themselves. I think it's the Bird Observatory of the Rockies now, in Janos, Chihuahua, and they were trained on identifying and handling grassland birds as part of a study of that group. And then this is Bernardo Rodriguez. He was my main partner in crime there, along with Che. Che is a nickname for Jose. But they've got here, we're getting Baird sparrow. So they breed in the Great Plains, and then most of them winter down in Mexico. So the Rocky Mountains studies them in the breeding season, and then wanted to see what was happening in winter. And this is a great picture of two Baird sparrows, and you can see sparrows, they usually call them little brown birds, but these do have some color, and they're very handsome looking birds. Part of the study, they were putting these tiny little radios on it. Now this is a Vesper sparrow, so it was big enough at the time to put this on. The technology, the radio was small enough to put them on a Vesper sparrow. Now they actually have them small enough they can put them on Baird sparrows and grasshopper sparrows. And what they're doing is looking at their movements in winter. So they have the telemetry, it has a range of about a kilometer, and they'll triangulate. This is just one person trying to find where the sparrow is. And they can get information on movements and survivorship and all that sort of stuff. And then also predation. Roadrunners can take a bird if they could grab it. Of course, they like lizards and pretty much anything they can get. And then also shrike. And we also caught a loggerhead shrike in the net, which I don't think I got to hold this bird, but I would have liked to. I would have risked a bitten finger for that, but it's a beautiful bird. There are harriers in the area too, so they can get information on predation as well. Any questions so far? No? All righty. All right, so a little bit further south in that central swath, you'll see this body of water is big enough that it's on the Google map at this scale, and it's La Laguna Santiago. The Nuevo Ideal, that's a new ideal, is colonized by Mennonites. I'm not sure how long ago, but I know that they make great hamburgers and they have delicious cheese. So that was always a good stop after birding in the morning to go to one of those shops and get those goodies. And also too, this area is part of an international Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. I wasn't familiar with this until I went to Mexico. I guess it's more popular there than in the States, although there are some Ramsar designated wetlands in the US, but it's an international convention. How much enforcement it has, I don't know, but it is a good project in trying to protect wetlands all over the world. And there is a lot of farmland around here, so you can see the fence, and this is an area inside here with out cattle, and outside here the cattle are roaming. And then back here you can see this whole area here is the Laguna, and then it's bordered by mountains as well. This is my picture because it doesn't have a great zoom, but it's got the gulls and we have coots. And then back here, though, I believe these are snow geese. It's been a while since I looked at these, but there are hundreds of snow geese and Ross's geese and greater white-fronted geese come here, as well as ducks and pelicans. I know ring-billed gulls, nothing spectacular for everybody, but we can get white pelicans in the hundreds on the lagoon as well. And then in the grasslands around, some other winter visitors, the chestnut-colored longspur, McGowan's longspur, and Sprague's pipit. So this is a great picture that this is Che Ugo again of the Sprague's pipit. All right, now to the city of Durango. So this is why I went to Durango. I had taken Spanish in high school and college, and I wanted to go somewhere to become fluent. I looked for a job in Costa Rica teaching science, but didn't get it. And then a friend had gone to this school in Durango, Mexico, which I had never heard of, and said, "Hey, you want to come teach here?" So I said, "Sure." And I went. And this was the old high school house. It's changed since then. But I taught middle and high school science, chemistry, physics, earth science, and biology. And then got my students involved right away in environmental projects. So this was our can collecting effort to support the Boy Scouts. And I believe, yeah, this was my first or second year there. And then these three guys eventually became my cousins. I also got involved with the local bird club. This is an event at Parque Guadiana. This is the most popular park. And they're not exactly like our parks. As you can see, there's papas here, papitas. Those are potato chips in the bags, and they put all sorts of salsa and lime and everything on it. And there's always an issue with trash. So part of our efforts were to educate people to try to keep things cleaner, because it's not as clean as the mountains where this picture is. And this is me and my wife and my first son. And if you can see the look on my face, this is me wondering, what am I doing in Durango with a wife and a kid? No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. But it's been great. I went to stay for 2 years. I met Cynthia and I stayed for 11 years. And then Sebastian and Jonathan were born there, and Sebastian's 12 and Jonathan's 10 now. So it was a great change of plans. As they say, life is what happens when you're making other plans, right? The city of Durango, this is a picture from my apartment. Definitely different architecture than what you see around here in the States. A lot of adobe, and this is an older town. This town, Durango, was established over, I think it's getting close to 460 years old now. This is the Cerro De Los Remedios. You can see it's got the telephone towers. This is the big public library, but always the mountains in the background. Mexico, of course, is a very Catholic country. There are churches everywhere. These are two different churches in the same view. This one's just further back on a few city blocks. They do have a beautiful cathedral downtown, but I couldn't find my good pictures of that. This is a picture looking the other way from my apartment, and this is called the Alamedas. Alamos are cottonwoods, if you didn't know that from the Battle of the Alamo. So, and there were good birds right here. If you can see these streets, it's very busy streets, but We often see good birds here. I got my lifer Plumbeus vireo right in these trees. And I saved my first ever baby Western screech owl. It was pretty crazy. I walked out one morning to go to work, and actually I was getting ready to go to the gym. It was before dark, like 6 in the morning. And this little baby screech owl was sitting on my front porch step. And then I found out his nest was back in here. So I put him back up in the tree with his two nest mates. And when I came back, he wasn't on the ground again. So I like to think that I helped him out. Then a part of culture and also natural history, Durango's famous for its scorpions. So this is the common one that's around the city and everywhere around there. They're just little ones, maybe a couple inches long, little yellow ones, but they are some of the most venomous in the world. And they have a lot of myths. One of the myths that I heard told was that cockroaches could confuse the scorpion and make it sting itself. Well, this picture debunks that. So this was actually, I don't remember exactly. I think I was walking on the street somewhere near my apartment and saw it on this window. So I took a picture of it. I did get stung once in my house. It was a little scary, but I did not react. Luckily, some people are allergic and it can be a fatal reaction, but I was lucky on that one. But when I was single, I bought a clock. There's a market there, and I bought a clock that had a scorpion at every hour, promoting scorpions. And but my wife made me get rid of it when I was a married man. All right. So in the city, again, the parks are big. So this is Parque Guadiana again, and it's kind of like a carnival atmosphere. There's people selling stuff, and the economic Durango is one of the least populated, and it is one of the lowest on, what shall we say, gross domestic product or in income levels. So there's a lot of people trying to make a living, and they're going through the park trying to sell whatever they can. And this is a little girl, looks like she didn't get what she wanted to get. But before all the crowds get there, they are great places to bird. And again, when I got there, I didn't have a car or anything, but I could walk to this park. And these are some of my pictures. We have red-naped sapsucker in the park, and this is one enjoying the sap from this eucalyptus tree. They do actually have eucalyptus that were introduced from Australia, and that's another story. We do get yellow-bellied sapsucker as well, and I'll show you another one we get in the mountains. The zone-tailed hawk, actually, they'll nest in the park. And one reason they hang out there is there's tons of turkey vultures and black vultures there. And the name of zone-tailed hawk in Spanish is aguililla, which means hawk, aura, which means vulture, because it's a hawk that imitates the vulture. If you're not familiar with them, they will teeter like a turkey vulture to try to get closer to their prey, and then they'll go into a dive and catch them after they've done their surprise attack. And I know Cooper's hawks are familiar to people around here, but I had to include this one because this was a great shot of 3 fledglings recently out of the nets in Parque Sawatoba, which is just across the street from Guadiana. So it was really cool watching them bounce around in the branches when they first left the nest. This species was a surprise for the park. This is normally a mountain species, but one day we did get it in the middle of the city in Parque Guadiana, and I got a decent picture of it, at least one to identify, the white-striped wood creeper. And I love these birds. They have a cool song. Maybe I should have included it in the presentation, but that was definitely a big surprise. This one, you can tell the quality of the picture goes up. It's not mine, it's Che Hugo's. But the black-backed Oriole nests in the park, and they're fairly easy to find all around the city. And there's a beautiful, beautiful bird. Part of promoting our parks, we would lead monthly bird walks, and we also developed a checklist of the birds of the park. I think we've got up to 132 or so species in the park so far. So this is Betty, who is the vice president and then later president of the club. This is the mayor of Durango at the time, Carlos, I can't remember his last name. And then me, and this is the cover of our checklist with a vermilion flycatcher. And they make a big deal of it. This is Lupita Uvita. She was the secretary of environment for the city. This is Pilar Rincon, she's tourism. He's the head for environment for the state. So it was a pretty big deal, and so big they even let a gringo speak, and I was a little nervous, but it was fun, and I guess they liked it. At least he's clapping. But it was a good experience, and I think we did a good job promoting the park and at least raising people's conscience about the importance of birds and to observe them and take care of them. Then this is just a little bit of the pamphlet we put together. We did put basic features like the frequency of occurrence and if they've nested in the park. That was fun putting together with Walter's help and Betty's book. And then this is one of the species there, the Lucifer Hummingbird. So here's a female weaving the spider web into her nest. And you can tell it's just got the tiny base and she's already shaping it to come in the cup. But they nest in Parque Guadiana, again, at the neighborhood of Guadiana, regularly. Pretty much every year we've had them. And this is the beautiful male. And these pictures were taken by Ale Rojas. She's the one doing a lot of the promotion for the eco-tourism centers in the mountains now. All right, so Che Hugo would kind of make fun of me because he said I never go birding outside the city, but I owe him a debt of gratitude because he started taking me out of the city since he had a car and he was willing to pick me up. And this is a wonderful site just outside of Durango. It's called Siena Los Alamos. We've got over 200 species registered there. It translates to cottonwood wetland or swamp. It's not too swampy, but it's definitely a wetland. But these are hundreds, and we can get to thousands of snow and Ross's geese here, and greater white-fronted geese, and tons of ducks and shorebirds. Che, as a consultant, again, he was on the faculty at the veterinary school, but he would also consult, and they had these things called Unidad de Manejo Ambiental, just a unit of environmental management. So they would go in, and these areas are open to hunting. There are a lot of hunters that go for geese and cranes too. There are good numbers of sandhill cranes in the winter, but they help monitor it and make sure that the people in the ejido are managing things well and it's not being overhunted, and we're conserving the species as well. The yellow-headed blackbirds can show up in the thousands too. At one place, I estimated about 10,000 yellow-headed blackbirds, and they're beautiful birds, of course. These are Che's pictures. Again, you can tell they're nice and crisp. These are the beautiful snow geese. This is a juvenile snow goose and a couple Ross geese. And then these are fulvous whistling ducks. The black-bellied whistling ducks are actually more common, but I took this picture of Che's because it went along with the snow and Ross's geese. And this is mine of a least sandpiper in fairly worn winter plumage, but there are tons of sandpipers. We get least, western, even some semi-palmated, which is a big deal for a western state like Durango. We were the first ones to register semi-palmated. Che got a good picture of a western and a semi-palmated least all together. But we get hundreds of dowitchers. We've even had Marlborough godwits show up, willets, phalaropes. The redneck phalarope has been showing up more and more too. So this is an absolute paradise, and it's just outside the city of Durango. Now to the mountains. This is my favorite area. These are just some of the beautiful scenery there. It does rain. This was in July of 2015. This was our going away party from Durango because we moved back to the States in 2015. But this is Bernardo, this is my wife, and then my two boys, and then Talia and one of their friends. You can see very wet and rainy. Normally in the rainy season, it would be nice in the morning, so give us time to go out to bird, and then in the afternoon it was rain. But that's why everything is so green and very, very lush. This picture almost looks like the temperate rainforest up in the Pacific Northwest, but lots of moss, lots of fungi here breaking down and recycling. And this, I'm not real good with my mushrooms, but I believe this is an amanita, one of the death caps. It's still beautiful. Another beautiful mushroom coming up with the forest background. And there are nice looking slugs. So you can tell with this sort of stuff, it's very humid this time of year. So it's basically a rainy season and a dry season, and this is the middle of the rainy season. And this is a highlight. This, I think I went about 5 times. I love this place. This El Salto de Agua Uvita, which literally means the jump of rainwater. I think they could have come up with something more creative, but it works. It's about 80 meters high, and there is a pool down there that you can trek down to and swim in. But even though it's wet up here, there's still kind of arid land plants like this yucca. I want to say this might be a century plant where they live for about 100 years and then have the one bloom, but don't quote me on that. But it's definitely related to those. And these, of course, will attract hummingbirds. And this is a great picture. That this is in the just to the right of the waterfall here. Military macaws nest there, and it's so cool to see them there. And to see them, they do fly in decent flocks in the valley that comes from the waterfall, but very hard to photograph. Che had a picture of him flying, but even his didn't turn out too well. And here's some other stars. Williamson Satsucker, this is the female, and they're found in the mountains in winter. The pine flycatcher, I know it's not a very colorful bird, but I like Impedinax flycatchers. I think they're very high on the cuteness factor and definitely challenging, although it's hard to identify them sometime. And this is the mountain trogon, or the koa. We use this as our symbol for the club because its name is koa because they say its call sounds like koa, koa, koa. And we use that to stand for conservadores y observadores de aves. And we added a D on it later on of Durango. But a beautiful, beautiful bird. Here's some more mountain birds. The striped sparrow, they end up being trash birds because they're everywhere, but they're definitely cool to see because they're endemic to Mexico and further south. Yellow-eyed junco, similar to dark-eyed, but with that bright, they call them in Spanish ojilumbre, which is basically fire eye. And gray silky flycatcher. You might notice that this bird is actually in a eucalyptus because this was one, I got it and it came down closer to the city of Durango where they're eucalyptus, but it's normally up in the pine forest and in the mountains. And this picture isn't the best, but it's a white-throated flycatcher. It's a little bad light, but it's my favorite flycatcher, not for how it looks, but for how it sounds. So let's see if this call, it's not a very beautiful one, but I think it has a lot of character. So I'm going to link to the Macaulay library here and play you this. Oops. There's a couple in the background. I don't know if you can hear that, but just a rough little gruff, and their whole body shakes when they do it. It's so cute. Very high on the cuteness factor there. Okay, now where am I? Hummingbirds, there are tons of hummingbirds there. You know, we only have the ruby-throated, and sometimes we get the rufous around here, but usually it's a juvenile rufous, not a beautiful, bold male rufous like this one. And they're pretty much all over the state in the winter, around the city even, and up in the mountains. But you have to go up in the mountains to get blue-throated hummingbird. It's a little, you can't see, but this is a blue throat, but I like this picture because he's sticking his tongue out at us. And this is a beautiful male white-eared hummingbird, which are very common up there. And they love this flower. This is called the Bandera Española, the Spanish flag, because it's the colors of the Spanish flag. Here, some other beautiful mountain species, and these are from René Valdez. He is a tour leader down there. He lives in Monterrey, but is from Mazatlan, and Durango's in between, so he would meet up with us when he was going between the two cities. But the red warbler, and beautiful warbler in the mountains, red-headed tanager, and the iconic Tufted J. And this one you can see it's got a little more blue tones in the wings, but gorgeous, gorgeous birds. And this is a highlight of Durango as well. In the mountains, there are these patches of bunch grasses, and this is the specialized habit of the Sierra Madre sparrow. Now this bird kind of looks like a song sparrow at first glance, but it's more reddish in the wings, and the song is definitely different as well. So I'm gonna play you just a clip of that also. So has some qualities like the song, but very different, more high pitched as well. And one of the issues with this is these are also good grazing habitats. So it's been a struggle to protect them from ranching, but they're working on it. They were worried that the species was going to go extinct, but we've a student found some more populations of them. But it's always a give and take between the ranching interests and the conservation interests. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar, I'm sure everybody's heard of the ivory-billed woodpecker, but the largest woodpecker to ever live was the Imperial Woodpecker. And its mainstay was in Durango and Chihuahua to the north. But this gives you an idea. Here's our pileated woodpecker, which is a big bird, as y'all know. Ivory-billed's even bigger, but the Imperial Woodpecker just dwarfs them. So this is the male, of course, with the red. Then this is a picture from the video, the only video footage you have of a live Imperial Woodpecker. This is the female, and her crest is all black, but it curls back even more. Maybe some of you have seen some of this footage. There's a book from one of the guys from Cornell Lab about how he went down to Durango to look for him. It is a little shaky, but this is the only footage they have of Imperial Woodpecker. And this is a female, as you can tell from her crest curling back more than the male. Walter Bishop actually did see them, and he tells a story of when he saw it flying, he thought it was a duck because it was so big, but then it perched upright on the side of a tree, and he's like, oh, that's not a duck. So he was probably the last person in the state of Durango to see the Imperial Woodpecker, and it basically was lost to all the big trees it depends on being taken down because of the forestry industry. Hopefully that's not making you dizzy, but I think it's very cool footage. And the story behind this, the Dr. Ryan who took it, they discovered it years later because he was ashamed of it because it wasn't good quality. And it's not, but it's the only footage we have of the Imperial Woodpecker. So it's very important to have. So Cornell found out about it and they restored it, and it's in part of the Macaulay Library now to be saved in perpetuity, which is good. And there it goes. To go back on a more positive note, in the cabins, or in the mountains, we do have nice cabins. This is one where we stayed at in Los Molinillos. And these are very fancy. Not all of them are this nice, but this is nice. It has its own kitchen and dining room area, and this was the living room. And they're relatively cheap considering what you get here. Again, this is probably one of the top of the line cabins, but they're spread out throughout the mountains in beautiful places. And some of the good experiences we had in some of those cabins, I don't know if you heard about Noah Stryker, but in 2015, he set off to set the record for the most species seen in a year, and he broke the record, over 5,000, but I think someone broke it the next year. But he was a very nice guy. And Rene Valdez was leading him from Monterey to, actually they were coming back from Mazatlan on their way to Monterey. And Rene called me and said, hey, what are you doing? I got Noah Stryker with me. And I'm like, no way. He was like, we're in the mountains, come on. And they came up. Noah was sick. He was sick as a dog. He was coughing and runny nose. And I'm like, don't you just want to rest and take a day off? He's like, no, I got to keep going. So the very next morning we went out and we got him 3 lifers, one of them being the eared quetzal. You can see the tiny little feathers here showing it its ear. Pine flycatcher was another lifer, and I want to say red-faced warbler was another lifer for him. And we got him 8 species for his list. And somebody tells me that he mentions me in the appendix for his book. I haven't gotten the book yet, but I believe him. But that was a pretty cool experience. And then also we got to meet Peter Pyle. He is the author of the bird banding books. He works at the Institute for Bird Populations in Point Reyes, California. And he came down in 2008 for the SECAM, which was the national meeting of Mexican ornithologists, which Alfredo Garza Herrera organized. He's actually taken samples, cloacal samples for avian flu. This is when they're trying to do studies on avian flu. And Peter Pyle was helping us with aging and sexing the birds, and this is a red-naped sapsucker. Unfortunately, the funding for the project didn't last long. It was for monitoring winter survival and then also avian flu, but we did get to do a season of banding and sampling. All right, so to close up, we're in the tropics, And this is the Puente Baluarte. So this gives you a perspective of very deep valley, 402 meters down. You can't see all of it here, but it connects. This is the border between Durango here on the left and Sinaloa, which is the state where Mazatlan is on the right, and the Rio Baluarte goes down below. And we hike down there, and this is Bernardo and me to give a different perspective from the river up to the bridge. And we kind of just, it's hard to get into the canyons. We kind of just stumbled on this because the bridge was built. There were areas of access for the construction crews. And then it is an ejido. It's the Ejido Pueblo Nuevo. And there's a little farm down here. And right here's the river back to the left of this is their kitchen. They have turkeys, they have pigs, they have chickens. And this is going back up the mountain. So this is their whole farmland and the river there. You can see that's kind of the tropical deciduous. So some of these things are losing leaves. I think this was in January. And this is Blanca and Rodrigo Aleman. I just walked down there, introduced myself, said, hey, we want to go see birds. Oh yeah, really great. And they cooked us meals. They cooked us like 2 or 3 meals. I mean, we camped out, we took a tent, but just very simple, but very welcoming people. It's great adventures in Mexico. I don't have as many pictures here, and most of these are Che's. I'll let you figure out which ones are Che's. His are the better ones. But black-capped vireos do winter down there by the river, and then lesser roadrunner, thick-billed kingbird, streak-backed oriole. If you didn't figure it out already, this one's my picture, and the other 3 are Che's. All right, just to wrap up, I'm running short on time, but this is thanks to Che for the pictures and the adventures, and Bernardo. We were the 3. There's not many birders in Durango. The club, we would get more, but we were the main 3 birders. And this is Rene Valdez and me chatting before. I don't remember if this is before or after we went on a pelagic trip the day before the Mazatlan bird count, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then Rene also, he compiles that count and the one at the Tufted J Preserve in the mountains, and those are always fabulous. And this is us going to those counts. And then also to Walter. This is Walter Bishop Guajardo. He was the founder of the club and a writer of the book, and Betty painted the pictures in the book. And this is them at the birth of our first son, Sebastian. And this is Walter with an albino red-tailed hawk that they found. It was injured at Betty's cousin's cabin in the mountains, or his ranch actually. And then just a thanks, these are some pictures from our trips. This is the Salto de Agua, Uvita again. And this is the Presa Garritos, which is my main area I cover in the Christmas bird counts. And with that, I'll end it there and take any questions y'all have.
Well, thank you, Brian. We appreciate it.
Welcome, my pleasure. Sorry, did I go over too much?
No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
you were great. That was just right. That was
great.
excellent. Really a nice escape on a cold winter night to think about being somewhere else in a different culture, and just a wonderful escape. Thank you very much.
Good,
Were there any questions, Christine? There was something about hummingbirds on Facebook, I think.
Yeah. We had Lisa on Facebook. I guess it was earlier on your presentation based on a picture. She was wondering how many hummingbirds species have been seen in Durango, or what people could typically expect to see on a variety of species there.
Okay, let me check. I got Walter and Betty's book right here. We got 1, 2, that's one. We got plain-capped starthroat I saw at the bottom of the river in Baluarte. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's 16 there, and I think we've added a few more since this book. So at least 16. We might be to 20 or more by now. But definitely a great
Nice.
variety of hummingbirds.
Yeah.
Violet crowned, we can see in the city. Broad-tailed is probably the most common one. It's there year-round. We've had Costa's hummingbird, Calliope hummingbird, Magnificent. I think they split that off to different species now. Broad-tailed hummingbird, it's great for hummingbirds.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I have a question. You had a lot of, when you were talking about the Laguna, the snow geese and the Ross's geese. Where are they coming from? Is
From
it
the
somebody-
from the plains, mostly Western U.S. They're coming from all the way from Canada and from the central United States, and they winter down there.
'cause it seems like
Mhm.
when you go up to the up north in the summer, you
Mhm.
don't see that many geese. I mean, you see them, but
Right.
if you have thousands there and we have thousands in North Carolina,
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of geese.
Well, they'll nest way up in the Arctic in the northern Canada, so they can be coming all the way up there. So,
What's your
Yeah.
favorite? What was your favorite bird seeing down there?
well, the Peregrine Falcon's my favorite of all time, and there are peregrines there. We actually I think it was at Siena Los Alamos, we saw a peregrine hunting once and saw it dive a few times. We didn't see it catch anything, but that's pretty awesome. I love the Trogons, the Quetzal. It's pretty easy to see if you go to the right place to see mountain Trogon and the eared Quetzal, and you can also see elegant Trogon. Those are beautiful birds. And I love the mountain warblers, Grace's warbler, crescent-chested warbler, red-faced, red, slate-throated redstart, painted redstart. They're just gorgeous. I gotta go now.
So only if you can take us with you.
Oh yeah, I would love it. I would love to organize a trip down there. And my club mates from down there want to come up here, which would be great. But I'd love to
We'll
do
take 'em
a
around.
culture exchange like that. Maybe we can do that once the pandemic dies down.
That sounds like a deal.
Very
Yeah,
neat.
that'd be awesome.
Natasha, were there a couple of questions on Zoom?
Sharon wanted clarification that the Imperial Woodpecker is extinct.
Yes, unfortunately, there's still people holding on, just like for the ivory build. But the Martin Lammergink, he's a Dutch guy. He's come a few times to look for it, and the name escapes me right now of the guy who wrote the book Imperial Dreams. He worked at the Cornell lab. He went down. I think they might have even been there in 2010, but they haven't found any. It's just there's not the old growth. Pretty much, there's no more old growth left. Maybe in some very remote canyons, but it's highly unlikely, unfortunately.
Okay. Roxanne wanted to know, are your students at Stanley Community College as interested in bird conservation as your students in Durango?
I want them to be. I was actually last spring, I was starting to organize a course, a continuing education course on birds of Stanley County to try to get more interest here. But then the pandemic hit and that kind of didn't fly, of course, pun intended. But I was thinking about doing it again this year, but with the pandemic's still not cleared up enough. But I would like to, and I want to eventually, I would like to get research students, because I'm thinking just even on the campus at Stanley Community College, we got a bunch of mockingbirds. And I think it would be really cool to do a behavioral and or nesting study of mockingbirds. Also Doug McNair, I know some of you know Doug McNair. He's published in the Carolina Bird Club about song sparrows. He published about breeding in Montgomery County, and I'd be interested in doing a similar study here in Albemarle, because I do see and hear song sparrows singing in the breeding season, and that would be interesting. But it's just a matter of time and not having a pandemic and getting students hooked.
William asks, do swallows migrate through Durango?
Oh yes, yeah, we get some good swallows, and a lot of them stay in winter. We get barn swallows, cliff swallows, and cave swallows all nest in the state. There's also Sinaloa martin, which is towards the mountains. But the migrating ones, we get tree. There is violet green that's year round that breeds in the mountains. Tree swallows, rough-winged swallows. We can get in the hundreds of tree swallows at times. But yes, there's good migration as well.
There were people in the desert pictures wearing coats. What
Yes,
do you think the best time to go to see birds in Durango would be?
anytime. I think winter is a really good time. Like if we were to go, Che is still going, and I see his lists in eBird, and he'll go to Siena Los Alamos, and he'll have 100 species in one morning. It's phenomenal, because you get the pelicans, you get the ducks, you get the geese, you get the shorebirds, you get orioles. We'll get tropical kingbird too, thick-billed kingbird. Hooded orioles are showing up more regularly. So Migration, of course, is great too, because you get the western words. Like I had a Townsend warbler in there, but you get hermit warbler. You get the thrushes, Swainson's hermit. I know we have those here, but it is good migration as well. But I think any time of year is good.
Have you noticed in the last couple of years on your Christmas counts that numbers of shorebirds are down?
I haven't been able to analyze that. I was hoping to be there for the Christmas count this year, but with the pandemic, we didn't travel. And really the area, our circle is right around the city of Durango, and it doesn't reach out to Alamos or a couple other areas that have the shorebirds. So we typically don't get that many. This picture on the left, oh wait, I'm not sharing my screen anymore, sorry. We would only get like spotted sandpiper, maybe a few peeps. We do actually cite, we get good numbers of blackneck stilts and avocets, but we're not at the really good shorebird areas in our Christmas count.
Okay, well, we've probably worn you out, Brian, but again, it was such an honor to have you. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get a chance to travel at some point.
Hopefully. Yeah, thanks. No, and thanks again for inviting me. I love talking about this stuff.
Good, thank you. Mexico, that this presentation was recorded so they can have that experience on demand. And also I'll leave you with a reminder. We hope you'll join us through Zoom or Facebook Live on March 4th for our presentation on bird hearing, which should be fascinating, by our own board member, Larry Leamy. So those of you who joined on Zoom, feel free to switch back to gallery view and stick around and chat some more if you'd like. And if you joined on Facebook Live, thanks again for being here, and we hope to see you again March 4th. Have a great evening.